Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective. We have another outstanding show for you all today. Mark, always great to have you on here, man. I'm very excited. Very excited to have you back. So thank you very much. Seb, always good to see you. Sean,
Yes, sir.
love it. And I do love the shirt. That was a really good one. Um, nothing like a frag mushroom. That's always fun. A good day. Before we get too far into anything, I do want to remind everybody, hit the like button, subscribe, do the notification thing. It all helps algorithmically. And I know Sean hates that word, but I'm going to use it consistently.
I like it
Um,
now.
he likes it now. The other thing is just to remind everybody, if you have any questions or thoughts or anything like that, hit us up in the comments. We read them all. We go through them all. And if you don't get us live, then we'll read them afterwards. But first, right off the bat, Winterstorm, good morning. Good to see you. Now, it is, again, it's June. It's Men's Mental Health Month. So we are going to be discussing men's mental health all month, every day on the collective. But before we get into that, Seb, you had an update on We Defy. So let's hit it up.
Yeah, just a very, very quick update for those that have been keeping track on the development here of We Defy Canada. So there was a bit of a lull in the action because there was a lot of actions on the US side. And so we finally managed to sort of link up, and Monday, January the 12th, at some point after the collective, we're going to have sort of what we think is going to be our final meeting so that we ascertain exactly what this looks like. But it's looking more and more that this is going ahead, and I will be able to confirm that on Tuesday, the 13th.
Sweet. Nice. That'll be awesome. Great to have it up here in Canada because I know there are a lot of people that are now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Reorg and We Defy are together, right? They're part of the same group, or they're working side by side, Mark?
We Defy was the inspiration for Reorg.
Roger.
Sam Seraph came over, Mal and Shabaro and Joey and the crew. Loved what it was they did. Came back and wanted to, as closely as possible, replicate it, which I believe he's done. So yeah, they're kind of like sister organizations, if you like, supporting each other.
That's wicked. Nothing like mutual support.
Yeah, and Seb, maybe you could, for anyone who it's their first time hearing We Defy in a sentence, perhaps you could just build it out a touch, a quick descriptor.
Yep.
Excuse me. Absolutely. So We Defy USA is a foundation that provides training to disabled veterans, military. In the States, it's military. In Canada, it'll be a little bit different. But essentially, first year of training is free. The equipment, the gis, and all this good stuff is free. There's a lot of supporting mechanisms that are afforded as well to the athletes that are starting. And there's an ambassador program, and there's all kinds of fundraising happening. And it's an incredible organization. Of course, I echo that for Reorg as well. I followed Sam for years now, and it wasn't until I went to the We Defy annual meeting this year in Delaware that I found out that Alan had actually gone back to the UK, and that this all started from We Defy. So I was following the two organizations, these two organizations are doing amazing things for veterans, but I didn't know that there was a connection there. So I'm super stoked. And there's, of course, another one in Australia whose name is escaping me at the moment, but as far as I'm concerned, we should have something like this everywhere in the world. We should be looking at a world's map and help each other grow.
Yeah, totally agree. Couldn't agree more. Before I have a number of topics, but anything off the top of your guys' heads in regards to either men's mental health or mental health in general that we want to dive into? Yeah, Sean, what do you got?
Yeah, and it builds off of what the topic, which may not be the topic today, but it's the topic that you just finished talking about, Seb and Mark, with Reorg and We Defy, these two organizations. As far as I'm concerned, the moment that I heard about them, I thought, oh, it's hope. It's hope for someone out there. It's hope for a dude that maybe I don't know yet, or a girl that I don't know yet. It's hope for them. And whether they ever get on the mats or not, I'm not going to say that's unimportant. It is important that they get on the mat. But whether they do get on the mats or not, it's the simple fact that there's hope for someone. There's a a thing out there that they can engage in. Whether they ever do or not is maybe not the important thing. It's just the fact that there's something out there, hope. And I dig these kind of organizations for the reason that someone may never get on the BJJ mats, but at least they feel like there's options out there, you know?
I like that.
And ultimately they know that somebody cares, which is a big deal.
For real.
Do you think that there is I mean, when you look at social media, there is definitely a kind of a consistent thing when in talking about men's mental health that a lot of people don't have that. They don't have hope. They don't think that anybody cares. And they really truly believe that they're kind of on their own in the world. But at least here, I mean, this is what we're trying to do with the collective, is show people that you're not alone. We all experience these things. We all develop differently, but we all kind of come from the same ground. At least we all have a general understanding of what it's like to be a man in, the Western world, which is it can be tricky sometimes, to say the least.
Yeah.
Mark, have you had any specific struggles or specific things in terms of mental health related to, I mean, obviously related to your injuries, but anything outside of that, anything externally in terms of like your worth, finding hope, anything like that, what we were talking about for the last second?
Not specifically related to that, but it's kind of funny that we're talking about this today, because 99.999% of the time I'm just moving forward. I'm good. My head's in the right space, and I'm chasing after what I want. But I don't know if you saw my Instagram or anything this last week or so, but because I was going so hard with training, I was competing, I was speaking, I drove about 1,500 miles in a week, and I had next to no sleep. And basically on my left leg, where it's amputated, on the inner thigh, there's no muscle or tissue. But there is muscle, so that's all there is. There's no tissue or flesh. So the skin can be prone to breakdown. And this has happened like 3 times in 15 years. So I'm quite lucky. But the skin broke down and I got an infection. That meant that my leg doubled in size. There's a small open wound on my leg. It attacks me internally. So I had a fever of 40 degrees. I don't know what that translates to. And I basically, really until this morning, hadn't worn my prosthetic legs for about 10 days and left the house. I went out, ran on my bum and got into the van and went for a few drives with my wife and kids. But I've been stuck in the house. And the weather over here is typical, because it has been glorious the whole time, right? And it's always raining, and it's not always. Like we have 10 days of like pure sunshine, and I've not been able to leave the house. And the first couple of days were great because I got to do a lot of things that I don't normally get time to do. I played catch up, got on top of my admin and all that kind of stuff. All the things that I normally procrastinate on, I managed to get done. I made the right call, sent emails, and did all that stuff that you can do from my laptop. But I haven't been to the gym for 10 days. I haven't been on the mats. I was meant to compete yesterday in the Reorg Open. And I'll be honest, it was hard watching everyone's social media last night when they're winning medals. And I knew I should have been fighting there. And I'm sat at home, just feeling bleh, because I haven't done anything for 10 days. So, we're talking about mental health. This has been a struggle for me, especially these last 4 or 5 days. And it's half time over here too, right? So the kids, they've only gone back to school today. They had the last week off. And, my wife's taken them out. They went camping for 2 days. They've been swimming in the sea. They've done water sports, paddleboarding, canoeing, and I've not been able to take part in any of that. So I've had to sit at home. I got this great series on Netflix though called Black Sails. It's pretty cool, about pirates. And so that's been keeping me sane. But yeah, it's been a struggle this last week or so. And this morning, this is what I think enough people don't do this, right? And because it sounds a little bit namby-pamby, but like being grateful for the little things in your life is huge. So this morning, to put my legs on, to walk out of the house relatively pain-free, to get into, I got into my car this morning and drove that. We bought a van about a week and a half ago. Today was the first time I got
What's
to
the
drive
Blue
that.
Bullet?
The Blue Bullet, yeah. Just thinking.
Yeah. So just those things, I've been able to go out there on my own with my independence again, driving around, enjoying the sunshine, drove to get a coffee and, you know, sat up and looked at the ocean, did some admin, you know, just, and that helped massively. You know, I'm right back in the fight tomorrow, going to London and Nottingham and then back to London again. And so lots more driving and working and everything this week. But yeah, it's been a struggle mentally to try and stay on top of things. But I know things are getting better now. I'll be back training again within a week and rebuilding. That's how I'm trying to look at it. It's like I've spent these last couple of days stripping everything back and pulling all the rubbish out and strengthening the foundation. And then when we get back in, we're going to build stronger. So.
I like that.
You know, when I was looking at your social media, I've been tracking it, of course, and reading in between the lines. So you write in a way that doesn't indicate the things that you just said. So what you just said now, you like, as I see it, you were fully transparent as you just said what you said over the last 5 minutes, and being really honest and forthright and etc. But that's not how you write in your social media. You were showing a little bit more positivity, I would say. Like you didn't feel too worn down, you didn't feel too beaten up, you didn't feel too negative as I was reading your social media posts. And so I'm not going to challenge you with this, but I'm going to ask you the question of, so as I was reading your stuff for the last week and change, I thought, it looks like Mark's having a bit of a rough go, but not too bad. You know what I'm saying? Like you'd found a level of, it's kind of tough, but not too tough. But now I listened to you and it was tougher than you had written. You know what I'm saying?
The last day or two have been, yeah.
Right. So the balance is like, how, I'm asking you, have you thought about what the right balance is for you as to what to put out to social media in the written form or on your own page versus what you just said now? I think would be really useful to others to understand that, man, sometimes it's just, it sucks. And this is how I work through it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And if you backtrack through my social media history, there's plenty of that.
There is.
I'm a big advocate of that. Like when I've been struggling, of being totally honest about it. I don't know why I haven't this week. I just haven't really felt like doing much social media.
That's why I'm asking the question, buddy. I was just trying to get to the bottom of why is that? Why do you think that is?
I think normally if I'm going through a tough time, if I think about it, I'm still out and about. I've still got my legs on. I'm still working. I've still got my independence. I'm still doing stuff. So that kind of, I stay in that battle rhythm. But this last week, it's been completely out of whack. And I've just picked up my phone and that's made me feel worse. So I'm like, right, I don't want to post anything. And if it came to me, this, you know, moment where I wanted to be totally raw and honest about, you know, feeling bad, then I absolutely would have wrote it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Because I agree with you completely that it helps more people. The positivity, right, is great and it helps people. But the honesty when you're struggling, I think is more powerful because it speaks to people that are going through that and they say, it's not just me. You know, everyone goes through this. So I don't know why I haven't put one of those out, but if you backtrack through my history, you'll see there's plenty of those.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. It is important. It is powerful that people hear that we're not invincible or invulnerable, that we do struggle from time to time. And I'm not going to say regular or not, but I mean, we'll all struggle till the day we die from time to time. And so I think it's important that people hear it from fellas that they might not think are struggling, you know, who tend to be really positive or face all the adversity and say, is that all you got? You know, we also have to keep it real in the sense of, man, today was tough, and I'm going to tell you why. ...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a great point in that. You know, giving yourself grace sometimes is really important when you're, at least the way I'm hearing it. It kind of sounds like you were in a bit of a gray area, right? You weren't like so down in the dumps that you were like, oh, okay, I should discuss this. I should tell people that I'm not feeling great, but you weren't feeling good enough to be like, let's promote and be, you know, and I've been in those gray areas too, where you just kind of, nothing feels quite right. Yeah. If you know what I mean. Is that kind of where you were hovering in?
Yeah, and it was strange because I was trying to pick all the positives out of being housebound. And there were some, like, because I train a lot and I travel a lot, you know, sometimes my elbow gets sore, or, you know, you all have them little injuries and niggles, right? That, you know, a little bit in the back, bit in the elbow, and everything's cleared up. Like this last week, like every little tiny issue that I had has disappeared. So I focused on that, and that was really helpful for one of the days. And like I said earlier, I got around to doing all of the things that I don't normally get to do, that I procrastinate on. So I focused on that. And then, like, you know, every other day or every 3 or 4 days, maybe, it was just like, oh, this is rubbish now. Because you're feeling a little bit fat and lazy. And
right.
all you seem to do, I ended up downloading some kids game on my phone. And I was just so bored, I'm playing kids games. And I'm like, And the thing is, you get on social media and you see your mates working out and you see your friends competing, and you're just like, I just want to be there. I want to be doing it. But
yeah, the fear of missing out is strong.
FOMO.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges, and I mean, I've said this before, is we as men do this a lot. We equate our worth to the amount of output we can give. Like the work we can put out equals how much we are worth to society.
Right.
And it's a fallacy, first off, right? Because your worth is not determined by how much you can put out. But at the same time, it is, depending on the group you're in. And so it's a really challenging struggle. Winterstorm has a great comment here. He says, giving yourself grace feels unearned, while being hard on yourself comes much easier and is taught. And we need to unlearn that. I don't know if we need to unlearn it, but I think we need to
balance it.
That's a great concept. So how do we do that? What have you guys learned that allows you to balance, you know, being hard on yourself, but also giving yourself the grace to rest or recover or rebuild, as Mark said? Who wants to go first? Seb, I'm going to put you on.
Sure. So just before I kind of go on this, just something for Mark. I mean, for me, from the outside perspective, having followed him for years and haven't heard him speak on various podcasts, it's quite evident to me that there's an incredible amount of internal strength there, and there's a lot less reliance on external factors to try to make things better for himself. And I'm kind of the same way. I like to isolate when things don't go well. When I suffered my injury, which was nowhere near what Mark suffered, but was serious in nature, people wanted to be with me, and I wanted to be on my own. And it's not that I wanted to be on my own in an unhealthy way, but that is how I work best for myself. It's not for everybody, but for me, that's how it works. And so what happens sometimes is, if I find myself in a bit of a darker space, I necessarily don't want to exteriorize everything on account of having everybody trying to come in and inject sort of their thoughts on what it is that's occurring that I could be changing or doing, and so although albeit well intended, and I absolutely appreciate that people care enough to send me something, you know, I really like to do my own fighting. So and this is, I have no idea why this is, but this is how it works for me. And so sometimes I will put it out. And if somebody contacts me in my DM, I'll have the real conversations. I have no issue with that. If somebody says, hey, how are you really doing? I'll be like, you know, so I'm not actually making things up, but I'm filtering slightly, right? Or not getting in the really, really deep sort of whatever situation I'm in. Anyway, I'm going in circle here, but you know what I'm saying. And so I can see that. I can see how draining it is for me if I put everything out in the open and I start getting all these messages back, or I start having all these conversations, and I'm not focusing on what I need to do to fix myself or fix the situation and regain control of that spiral I'm in. But definitely the spirals are there like anybody else, right?
Absolutely. Shaun or Mark, you got any comments on this?
Go ahead, Mark.
I was just I'm very similar to Seb in that I go off and isolate and do all the time, even when I'm feeling great. I just, I like my own company. My wife says that I'm antisocial, and I say no, I'm an introvert. Like, she wants to bring people around the house all the time and go to this party, that party, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm just gonna chill, stay at home,
You and
do
me
my
both.
thing. And I don't know. I think to a degree it's quite a good trait to have. And I'm not saying it's a negative thing to rely on people, but it actually feels quite good to know that you can do 99% of the things on your own with your own research. And that's, like you said, Seb, it's not like being negative or wanting people to reach out and give you attention or any of that stuff. It's just like you, it's the way I naturally feel more comfortable dealing with things. It's just to figure it out my own. And I am 1000% not afraid to reach out and ask for help if I feel like I need it, and I will do that. I've cried in front of men, I've cried in front of women. I don't care what people think. If I need that support, then I will ask for it, because it's the smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, just on that, kudos to Shaun, because he's heard from me when I was going through a breakup last year, and for me, I was doing 99% of the work to do what I needed to do to be back to where I needed to be. But at some point I'm sort of brainstorming with myself, and I'm coming back with the same outcome here, because there's no brainstorming with yourself for an extended amount of time and expect a different outcome. So one day I was like, oh man, I have to call someone, right? So I was on the phone with Shaun. We had a Zoom. We had a conversation for about an hour. We bounced stuff off, and that was the one time during this entire breakup that I needed it. But there was no hesitation. I went and did that, and very grateful for that.
And the when that did happen, when Seb he didn't reach out. We just connected, man. We were just chatting, and I don't want to turn it. I don't want to turn it into a big deal, because I don't see it as that. It was just two dudes chatting, like Seb I think is I don't know. He's not making it into a big deal, because it wasn't a big deal. It was just two dudes chatting about something and bouncing ideas off of each other, as every guy should. If someone, or if I need to talk to someone, I don't reach out in the sense of make it formal. Seb didn't make it formal. It's just, what's up, pal? And then the conversation will go from there. There doesn't need to be any structure or guidelines or boundaries or on the watch, or there's none of that. It's just, what's up, buddy? And then the conversation occurs, whether it's 1 minute or 12 minutes, it doesn't matter. And so the reason I'm saying it that way is because what you had said, Mark, is if ever you're not reluctant to reach out to someone if you feel that you need to reach out. But I don't think of it that way, as reaching out, because to me that seems like so formal. Right. I've categorized it as, if I want to chat with someone, I'm just going to hit someone up with, what's up, buddy? And now it's like, it's not I don't even have to judge myself.
Daunting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not daunting. It's just like connecting with a bro. What's up, pal? And if I'm connecting that way, at the receiving end, they get to think of it this way. Oh, this isn't going to be all doom and gloom, or, oh, this isn't going to be mega intense, or, oh, this isn't. And so the vibe right at the front end, if it's set right, the synchronicity of the moment will establish how successful the conversation is. So if anyone ever hits me up, and even if it's a really, really serious matter, I just try to treat it like not a casual chat, but I try to keep it like low key and just chill, so it's not mega intense, because I don't think it needs to be.
Yeah.
I think in line with this, Shaun, I think one of the critical piece of this is having the right relationships with the right people and doing it preemptively. So you're actually not calling just when things aren't going right.
Yeah, 100%.
Or you're, because
100%.
it actually spotlights the event. Whereas if you and I
does.
are having a weekly chat as friends and we're bouncing stuff off, guess what? We're rolling right into that.
Dude,
Like
we're just rolling. Yeah.
precisely. So having those established meaningful relationships, the people that when you give an hour of your life to them, if it was your last hour, you wouldn't regret it.
Oh, you'd enjoy it. Not only regret it, you'd look forward to it. You'd want it. You know what I mean? My last hour on the planet, it's with Seb. Cool.
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
There's a great point here, and I want to hit it in just 1 second here. I just forgot to hit these earlier. Taylor, good morning. Good to see you. Carl, checking in. Good to see you. And Jason, always good here. Carl put out a point here, but I wanted to hit this point beforehand so I don't forget it. But you guys both mentioned like formality, the feeling of formality of like reaching out to somebody. And Seb, you touched on it there, is that usually that formality comes, that feeling is usually because it's the extent or the depth of the charge in nature of what you're trying to call out, right? If you haven't talked to anybody and you are, at level 9, you're in the 9th circle of hell and you're just like your absolute last opportunity to reach out, that's going to feel formal, right? That is going to be I seriously need help right now.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal. But if you leave it till that, it's going to be a challenge to do so, right? If that's the first interaction you're going to have with somebody. But as you said, Seb, the best thing you can do is just, when you hit the 2nd level of hell, hey man, what's up? Just reach out for a chat too. And that way it's not a formal thing. It's just, hey, I haven't talked to this guy in a while. Let's have a chat. And then if something develops out of it, bonus, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at least you were able to connect with someone at a level 2 rather than a level 9. And that's a bigger deal. Carl
just
says,
on that.
Oh yeah,
sorry.
by all means, go for it.
I was going to say just on that, like this is called diffusing essentially, right? You are diffusing as you are going. So otherwise it compounds. And when it compounds, you reach a certain point where it no longer compounds, it exponentially increase. And so now when you do reach out and you're having a conversation with somebody, not only is that 10 times more challenging for them, but it's also more challenging for you. And now you're in a tough sort of cycle to get out of, right?
Yeah, well, every conversation is a QRF. Like it's a quick reaction force every single time.
Precisely.
And so, if you're struggling out there and you've tried to have several conversations with several individuals, and every time you start the conversation, like it's a quick reaction force moment, it's like the responses that you're going to get probably won't be really chill. Probably won't be, okay, let's slow it down and let's see where we're at right now. Because if you launch into the convo with a QRF, it's a QRF response at the other end, and people are spooling things up and things are moving faster than maybe they need to be. So if you've been frustrated in the past where you've reached out to friends and your dialogue is nonstop 30 minutes of 180 words per minute, and if you need to do that every single conversation and it's not been working for you, try a different tact. Consider what you need to say, and then take your time within about 2 minutes of your opening conversation to get those points established, and then pause 2, 3, take a deep breath and slow down the quick reaction force moment.
100% it. Mark, you got any thoughts on this at all?
The whole having the informal conversation thing, diffusing, getting at level 2 instead of level 9. I think, particularly from my point of view and from my life, that is the benefit of having other veterans in my circles, and the circles that I operate in are very small and tight knit, and there's a lot of veterans in them. And I think a lot of these conversations happen and they're not even, I'm not going to say not noticed, they're obviously noticed, but like I'll be in the gym like working out with somebody, right? And then we'll end up having this conversation while we're training about what they're struggling with, what I might be struggling with, or, you know, we're on the mats and we're 4 rounds in, and then all of a sudden someone wants a rest, so they strike up a conversation pretending they're not tired because they want a rest. And then you go into this thing and you figure out what's going on with them. And the whole informal approach, I think, is very powerful. It's not intimidating. It's not, I think you said, daunting. And I mean, it's not, you can't train for that. You know what I mean? You can't get certifications in that kind of stuff. It's just, like you say, being there for your buddy. You know, what's up, bud? You're training, you're doing whatever. The conversation happens. I think then with the mix of, you know, the endorphins of training and getting it off your chest, just, you know, the chemical release that happens there just makes people feel good and better. And they walk out the gym off the mats feeling better. And you haven't really, in your mind, done anything except for have a conversation with a friend.
Yeah, that's a fact.
It carries a lot of weight. This is the thing that I think we don't realize, is that when we keep it to ourselves, when we keep these issues, all these thoughts, all these negative emotions or bad times or anything like that, it weighs, right? It has a weight to it on your own psyche. And I use this example a lot. My granddad was a World War II veteran. He didn't talk about the war at all, period, for 70 plus years until I came back from Afghanistan, and him and I had a little chat. But in that moment of us talking, I could see just a little bit of that weight come off of his shoulders. But he had been stacking that on for 70 plus years, right? And at no point was he ever going to be able to get rid of that wholly, but at least a portion of that could come off. And I think that's what you're talking about, Mark, especially at the gym or on the mats when it's very informal. It goes to the point that Carl made here, is part of it's knowing you have a safe, defensible place to go when you are alone to process and a regroup for the mind, to say the least. And I think that is where that really informal basis of just training with somebody, or especially work. Because I remember when when we were building stuff in the engineers, you'd be working, you'd be physically doing stuff, you'd be building a bridge or doing whatever, but you would also be chatting, you'd be talking, and you'd be discussing things, and just there'd be jibber jabber. And sometimes the conversations became serious, but the workload kind of carried it, if you know what I mean. The physical exertion allowed you to discuss it without it becoming a big issue.
Well, you're now working on a common goal as you are doing that, so we know that this already builds that relationship, and now now you're opening up as well. One of the things that's really interesting is when people have a tendency to speak to, well, I'm not a professional. Okay, so the reason why a professional has to be trained specifically for certain things is they will be speaking to strangers that they know nothing about. They don't know them. So they have to establish like a roadmap of what that person is, what drives them, what are the things that are behind some of the issues that they're having. And so I'm not suggesting not to speak to professional. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that if you have a relationship with somebody and you know that person very well, you might very well be the best person to talk to them. Like, no amount of degrees or academic knowledge is going to change that. And also your words, on account of having a trust already built, your words are extremely powerful with that person. And so, yes, you have to be careful, but also you have to be, it's a different animal.
100%. Shaun, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. To Seb's point, it's something that I'm trying to get better at, is when I give advice or an opinion, perhaps, I've been trying to be more careful of how I deliver it and how much I say or don't say, because words are powerful for sure. And I've come to realize that some people are paying attention to some of the things that I'm saying. And so I'm being more careful now than I was a year ago with advice or out loud words that I say, because it is a bit of a responsibility, not only between myself and the individual that I'm having a conversation with, but it's a responsibility of setting a long-term message for that person who's then going to communicate with someone else. So if I'm quote unquote teaching someone else to listen, then they're learning how to listen, and then they've got to teach someone else how to listen down the road. And so it's kind of, I'm trying to be helpful in the moment for the person, but I'm trying to be helpful for the future to lay the groundwork for how to do this thing properly for that individual, for someone else.
A telephone game, right? We know what happens at the end of that.
That's right.
Yeah, there's another great comment for Winter Storm here. He says, I often need time to process a situation if it allows. What happens, though, is I go past processing and it turns into dealing with the details rather than the needed outcome. He says, being alone is good and healthy, but staying alone is not. And I think that's a great point.
But I'm super comfortable, man. Like Mark and Seb, or maybe you, I don't know. Like, I don't need anyone at all, period. I love my family. I love my dog. I love my neighborhood. I love my country. I love the whole thing, but I don't need anyone, period. And if I came out of the bush once a year to wave at everyone and walk back into the bush, that'd be enough for me, man. I mean, I literally don't need it. Peace out. But I do love life, and I'm very, very comfortable in my own skin for whatever reason. So it's not that I'm opposed to interacting with people. I'm not. I love it. But I'm comfortable enough with myself that I don't need it. And so that is kind of liberating. If you're comfortable with yourself and you're comfortable with the external world, you can move through it without much hassle. But where I see a lot of hassle is people moving through the external world, not comfortable with their internal space. And so that's the trick, man. You got to get right with yourself. And I'm not right with myself, but I'm comfortable enough with myself that I can flow wherever I want and not sweat the details too much.
And I think we have to be really careful with that, because there's, I agree with you, Shaun. I'm exactly the same way, but there's three of us here, Mark, you, and me, and we definitely don't want the message to be misconstrued, because it's actually quite rare. And now you have three of us on the same talk show. So there's really absolutely no issue with not being like that. Zero issues. Like it's just a character traits. It based upon a variety of different things. But it is the less amount of external you rely on, the better it is, because unfortunately that is the variable, and variable you don't have any control over, whereas you can control your internal mechanisms almost 100% of the time. And so it helps you navigate. So if you can slowly in increment start disconnecting from the need for the external world to step in, then it's ideal, but it takes time.
It does. And so if you're a 22-year-old man listening to this podcast later today, and you get it in your head after listening to this that you're now going to walk up into Alaska and live in a bush in a bus for 3 months, don't do it.
Don't do that.
It's incremental.
At 20, do it.
I guess that would be quite the experience. I'm pretty sure a book was written on that at one point.
Right.
But Mark, you got any thoughts on being alone, staying alone happy?
No, it is bizarre that there are. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but there's at least three of us on here that, for some reason, are all wired the same. And I don't know what that is. I don't know where that came from for me. But Seb hit the nail on the head there, where he said, this is absolutely not the be all and end all. Everyone's completely different. But I don't know where it came from, how it happened, and why. But I'm just comfortable on my own, and I know I can survive on my own. That being said, I do want people around me. I want them around me.
See, the funny thing is, I used to think that I was the loner. I used to think that I didn't like being around people. I used to think that I was completely introverted and didn't want to be around anybody. And it wasn't until quite recently that my wife actually called me out on it. And she was like, I said, "Oh yeah, no, I'm an introvert. I don't like being around people." And she was like, "Are you freaking kidding me? You were a social butterfly." And I was like, "This guy? What are you talking about?" Right? Yeah, there you go. I even had wings. Yeah. And I am a bit of a social butterfly now that I actually take the time to look at it. But what was looking at originally was the fact that I have a very low social battery. So I can't do big social events for long periods of time. I could do 1, maybe 2 or 3 in a year, right? But that would be the extent of it. And then I need time. I need actual alone time to decompress from it, and then I can build up my battery again, and I can carry on being the social butterfly. Benefit of this, I get to talk to people all day, and I don't have to actually have the physical social interaction, because that is, I think, what overall drains me in general. But as you said, Mark, is that you're perfectly comfortable being alone. I'm perfectly comfortable being alone too, but I like having that interaction. I enjoy, I guess, the conversations and the camaraderie and even the little bit of the bravado and the poking at each other and doing all those things, right? It's part of being human. As humans, we are a gregarious species, right? We are a social species, right? We seek a social nature. So that's part of life. And I think understanding yourself, that's a big part of that growth period of life, is once you can actually figure out who you are and go, oh, you know what? I could go to Alaska and live by myself and walk out of the bush every once in a year and be like, hey, walk down the street and be good to go. Or at the same time saying, I need, for my own well-being, I need to have interactions with people. I think it's part of understanding who you are, which takes time, experience. Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if
lifetime.
Yeah. I would love to put this to the group to see if there's any. I mean, we may not be the right group for this conversation, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on. There's a lot of we speak about mental health as if this big umbrella thing that encompasses everything, but there are so many subsections and things that we can launch into in the mental health realm that is never spoken about. And I've identified a couple of those, and just to kind of toss them to the table for you guys. So emotional intimacy, and people that have an issue with that, men that have an issue with that, as well as that are lonely. There's a lot of people out there, men that are lonely, that don't necessarily have a roadmap to meet someone, or they feel like they don't have the stuff, or whatever the case may be, whatever story they're telling themselves for not engaging in those situations. It creates a tremendous amount of issues for them. What would you say to somebody that's absolutely super lonely?
That's a good question. What do you want to do? Shaun, you want to take it?
Yeah. So I've kind of been doing it every morning at 10 o'clock, plus or minus. I come on and have my coffee with the internet. For anyone out there who's lonely or not, anyone who wants to join me for a coffee or not, anyone who wants to listen to my nonsense or not, every morning at 10 o'clock, come join me if you're lonely. And further to that, if you're in my town and you're lonely, guess what? At about 12:15, most days, I'm sitting in front of Hooper's eating a pastry, and people walk by and stop and chat with me, or people will walk by and sit on the bench and chat with me. And it's not because I need to chat with them. I don't. Like I said, I'm comfortable living in a bus in Alaska. No big deal. So I'm not sitting on the bench for them or for me. I'm just sitting and seeing what happens. And it's not like it's a social experiment or anything. I'm just making myself freely available for anyone who wants to interact. And the reason that I'm doing that is I'm trying to demonstrate that it's not a big deal. It's not that hard. I'm going about my day anyway. So rather than being up in the bush and eating a pastry, I'm just sitting on a bench and eating a pastry. I'm still going to ride. But if you want to slide by and have a chat, let's chat. And if you just want to give me a nod, let's nod. If you want to interact by giving me side eye me. But now we're interacting. And so we'll figure out the rest as it unfolds. But I'm making the point that it's for us to make ourselves available to start the conversations with other men.
Wow.
See, Mark can't do that though, because if he does, he gets swarmed by a million people. Where you and I, Shaun, we can sit on the corner all day.
Swarming for sure.
I tell you what, right? That is, I think that's a valid point there. This is something I was going to talk about actually when it comes to struggles and one of the things that I struggle with, because I put myself out there so much on social media. I spend an inordinate amount of time going through my DMs, emails. People, I don't know how they do it, but there's people that I've never met before that I might be connected on social media that call my phone, and I have missed calls from people through Instagram and Facebook. But I mean, I'll give you an example now, not mentioning any names. I've got one old guy who's messaging me. He's in hospital and he's struggling, and I'm like, you know, with respect, what can I do about that? But he's felt the need to reach out. I've had someone who's going into hospital to have an amputation reaching out to me. I've had somebody this week, particularly because I've been stuck in the house with the leg infection, talking to me about loneliness. And sometimes I find it difficult. It's a lot to take on, right? Especially from strangers. This is one of the reasons why I know we talked about informally chatting earlier with your buddies and the QRF thing. But every once in a while, I'll go to an organization over here in the UK called Rock to Recovery. It was founded by 2 former Royal Marines. One was Special Forces. And it's a coaching mental health organization. They're not clinical. They use like neuro-linguistic programming and that kind of stuff. But I do some fundraising and work with them every once in a while. And I literally, and they know what I'm like. If I pick up the phone and call them, it's not for anything therapeutic or clinical. I just want to sit in a room with somebody and go unload and just go out for an hour, because I take a lot of stuff on from strangers, and it's difficult to deal with sometimes. Sure. You know, I won't go into detail, but I've had some horrendous messages over the years from people that have been through absolute misery and stuff I would never want to go through. And it's hard to carry that around with you all the time when you're trying to get on with your life, be present for your family, have a career and a job. So, you know, informally, you can get someone out of your chest. But for me, when that all mounts up, I need to just go and take the safety catch off and go unload on someone and get it out there. So, yeah, I know we joked about it, but it's, and we mentioned earlier about having that responsibility. I do feel a responsibility to get back to as many people as I possibly can, but it's hard work. It takes,
man. It is, and I can't even begin to imagine what you face from time to time in respect to your DMs and such. I mean, I get them myself, but it's got to be a very, very minor percentage compared to what you're facing, no doubt, as a public figure to some degree. And so when those moments, when people are bombing you with DMs, do you just put your phone down and say, I'm done for the day? Or do you just go until you frazzle out? What is it?
Some of the times I'll do that, and I'll try and be reactive in the moment and answer it. And then one of the things that I found quite effective is if I've got a couple of hours in my week, I'll go off on my own somewhere. I'll put my phone on airplane mode, because what makes it worse is when I'm trying to deal with it, and I'll message one person, move to the next, and then that person messages me back.
Yeah, right.
And I just get so stressed out.
Yeah.
So I'll put my phone on airplane mode so I'm not contactable, and I'll go through all my texts, all my WhatsApps, all my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter DMs, put all the replies in, record some voice notes. Then when I'm done, put airplane mode off, hook up to Wi-Fi, all gone in one hit.
That's wild.
That's when it gets too much. That's how I deal with it.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, but it's just too hard trying to navigate your way through the day and be constantly reacting to people's messages when you've got a full schedule and a family. So I've developed a way to deal with it, which works for me. But I guess the bigger the platform you get, the more this is going to happen. So, you know, I've actually today reached out to a social media company about managing my social media, but I'm sure it will get to a point where maybe I need someone from an organization like Rock to Recovery who can monitor that kind of stuff for me for some of the more serious people that are getting in contact with real bad issues.
Yeah, right.
Compassion fatigue is it's a thing, and it's a big deal. when you start working with, especially in advocacy, or start working in any time where people are struggling and you're their point of contact, there is a very real thing that you will be fatigued from being compassionate for a while, and you will start to gloss over, and you'll start to glaze over, and you will not be as effective as a helper, as somebody that can allow somebody to either process through that. And then there's the other problem is that some days, you said you need to just unload on somebody. There's other times that they're going to do it to you. And so boundaries is a very big deal. And you have to be able to set those boundaries and say, today, no, not going to do it. And I've done it to people too. People call me at, 1:30 in the morning and I'm sorry, man, not today. Call this person and direct them somewhere else, because it's a crusher. Because if all of your compassion and all your energy is being put to external people and people outside around you, as you said, you don't have anything left for your family. You don't have anything left for, being your job, what you're doing every day, and for yourself especially. So it's a big issue that I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people that got into the veteran advocacy world and were immediately burnt out after like a year or two, just from compassion fatigue, and they couldn't handle it anymore because they didn't set the boundaries.
I spent a lot of time and a lot of money training as a life coach, or whatever you want to call it, peak performance coach, or whatever. And by the time I had gained all the qualifications and done the year's worth of training, I couldn't do the job because of that. I was like, I can't sit here all day taking on people's stuff and then have any energy left for anything else at the end of it. So I just kind of sacked it. I was like, I'm not doing that, because it just burns you out.
Yeah, it really does.
You got to be careful with it for sure.
I have about a 20th of your followers, Mark, and my DM is a full-time job also. and it's the same. It's the investment of the people that are following the journey, and it's trying to help as many people as I can. And Shaun, I know you've been on countless Zoom meetings, so have I, with random people that need some help, and it's great, and we'll continue to do that. But I think right now, Mark, you're probably in the range that's the worst range of followers to have, because if you had 500,000, nobody expects you to respond. If you, as soon as you pass a certain number, it's just normal. You're not expecting a response. But when you're kind of in that range where you have enough, but you don't have enough, you're consistently expected to engage. And if you don't engage, there's repercussions to this. But also, if you start going back through your DM and you're seeing people struggling, having certain issues, and who knows what happened after, if you haven't answered or whatever. So there is, I'm not suggesting that we become Atlas and carry the weight of the world, but it's easier said than done to turn your back and be like, I'm not gonna look at this. I'm not gonna answer this today.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I do like the idea of social media company or like management companies, because there is a point in time where, as you guys said, it becomes a full-time job just to answer people. And you're not being as effective with your time as you could possibly be. Right. Wow. But yeah, it's a challenge, man. Social media is a weird beast, and
it is weird and it is challenging. But at the end of the day, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Just freaking do your best. I mean, if I'm responsible to provide some sort of wisdom or guidance or opinion or advice or whatever the case is to someone who contacts me 25 minutes from now, I'll do my best. I won't carry their entire world on my shoulders for the rest of my life. I'll do my best. And then I will move on to the next thing that I will do my best on for that next person or that next thing. That's just the only way I can do it, is not focus on who I've let down and who I'll let down later today. Have I let myself down? Am I winning? Am I losing? I don't worry about that stuff. I just try to do my best in the moment.
That's a great point. And there is something that I did want to add to that. We do have a quick comment here, but the one thing I wanted to add to that is the fact that there's nothing in the world that says you need to get back to somebody right now, right? Sometimes there's a certain message that is drastic and you need to like hit back right away. But there have been times where I've received messages that I've needed to think about, and I've read and had to ponder and consider, and 2, 3, 4 hours later, or 2, 3, 4 days later, I get back to them and say, hey, you know, I was thinking about this. This is how I feel about it now. But again, that's setting boundaries. That really is like having a line that says, okay, my time is valuable as well. Now I'm going to either utilize it correctly, or I'm like, I don't want to waste it and give you something frivolous at the same time. But doing your best in the moment is always the right choice, I think.
Yeah, until it's not. Because then there's a person who might hit you up 1,000 times that week.
True.
And try to pull you down a black hole of negativity suck.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to spend my week in a black hole of suck with that person who isn't willing to work on themselves. So I'll do my best until I realize that my best ain't good enough. And it won't be an hasta luego to them, but it will be, hey man, I can't help you. For this, and this reason, you need to seek professional help, or for this, and this reason, you need to consider ... But I got to bounce. And I'll say it nicely, but I can't invest myself in someone who isn't, if I'm not the right puzzle solver for them.
Yeah. Well, it's all about, you know, application of your boundaries is part of doing your best, right? Doing your best doesn't mean you're going to solve all the problems for everybody. It just means you're going to do your best in the moment. And if that means that you got to pass them to somebody that's either more qualified or a better fit, that's still doing your best for that person.
Yeah, and the two words of efficient and effective should also come into play in that sentence, because if I'm doing my best, but I'm not being efficient and effective, well, now it's taking me 4 years to do my best with one person. But maybe someone else next to me can be more efficient and effective with that person, that I can say, okay, I got to bounce. This guy has got that guy. I can move on to the next guy, and I can be more efficient and effective with that person, et cetera, et cetera. It's just using your own resources, time, money, whatever the case is, your resources effectively with that person in front of you. And we aren't always the right guy for every single moment. So you've got to understand your resources and move them around.
And there's also the fact that and I think it's really important to have that conversation where the people that are seeking help or people that are struggling need to understand that they are the angular stone of the solution. Like, it's not the external world that will come and fix you. You will fix yourself with the help of the external world. That's very different. So if you take on that task and the ownership is on you to do as much and optimize your success as much as you can, have a roadmap. Yes, you can bounce it off other people, but you will have to do the work. And once you do that, you can truly benefit from somebody coming from the exterior world of helping. But if you're waiting for somebody to save you, it's not going to happen. Like, it simply isn't going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. So we got a couple comments here, and then we can we'll do some closing as we're just short on time. Dave Gibson says, Shaun, you should know that you project that it is perfectly okay to be honest about your feelings. That's what I hear, which I think is perfect. Talking to horses, Jason says, it's the talent of kindness instead of being nice when helping people. Truth versus what they want to hear. And that is a fantastic point.
Tough love, man.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, there's a saying out there that says, if you want to help people, you'll tell them what they don't want to hear. If you want to help yourself, you'll tell them what they want to hear. You know, and it's
I like that.
I like that.
Dr. C says, the last one I'll do, and then we'll do some closing remarks. Dr. C says, reminds me of Buddhism. The answer is within. Yes. Very true and very empowering for individuals. Yeah, that's what I
should be good news.
Should be good news. The answer is right. Exactly.
Let's freaking celebrate, man. Yeah. That's the keys to the universe right there.
100%.
100%. All right, so let's roll through. Anybody last thoughts, last comments, anything still percolating in the depths of your mind? Mark, I'll throw you on first.
Yeah, I think maybe what we just finished with there, you know, when it comes to not just mental health struggles, but I think any kind of struggles in life, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and be very honest with yourself and say, it starts with me. I have to take personal responsibility for my situation. Everything that I've done in my life right now has brought me here to this moment, right? And I need to take myself out of it and change things myself and start working on yourself. Taking responsibility is a huge thing. That feels like a weight off your shoulders to begin with when you say, right, this is my issue. I have to deal with it. Once you start there, then you go reaching out to get the specialized help. And that's when it all starts to change. I find a lot of people, and it's very hard to try and articulate this to somebody because you don't know exactly where they are mentally. But what you want to do in a DM is say, you need to take charge of this, mate, and you need to start working on yourself before anyone else can help. But you have to be very careful about how you say it to people. But that's the truth.
That's the truth.
Take that responsibility, personal responsibility, in many situations in life before you reach out externally.
100%. Seb, any final thoughts?
Yeah. Excuse me. You don't want to be a passenger in a driverless bus, depending on everybody else to do certain things, not knowing where you're going. Like, take the wheel, take ownership of the things that you own, even the things that you don't own, and then start looking at how you're going to, optimize your success. And if you need help in that process, establishing a roadmap, there's a ton of help that, yes, you can seek some external help to try to find a way, to formulate your plan of action. But every single one of those steps are going to be difficult. There isn't a step. Nothing is easy. Nothing meaningful is easy. But once you start getting better, and sometimes things will get a little harder before they get better, but that's okay too, as long as you know that, there's an end to this. It's a temporary state of affairs. So there's some hard work ahead, but in a couple of years from now, you'll be looking back going, I did this.
Absolutely. Shaun?
Yeah, like Mark and Seb said, it's be prepared to do some hard work, but it's good work. I mean, everyone treats it like it's the horrible homework that shouldn't be done. It's the best kind of homework. It's the good homework. It's the work that makes you better. And the only way that you can know that is if you do your homework the following day, the results are right there. And so week after week, month after month, just do some hard work. It doesn't have to be crazy velocity work, but just some hard work every day. Before you know it, you'll be looking in the rear view mirror and shrugging your shoulders and thinking, it wasn't that hard. It was kind of good. And at that point, when you're thinking those things, you'll be able to look to your left and right and see who you can help.
Just one more thing just to piggyback on Shaun here. I'm sorry I have to do this.
All good,
but what I was going to say is, and then you build your self-confidence, because when life hits again, which is going to happen, you're going to be a different human at that time.
Yeah,
and have an increased ability to deal with adversity as it comes through. The one fallacy is to think that, I had this really bad event occurring in my life, so I should be done for the rest of it. That's not how this works. It's ups and downs, ebbs and flows, and there are always going to be adversity. So the stronger you become, the better it is.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Shaun hit me with this a little while ago. I think it was when we were at Pegasus Jump, actually. You said you got to figure out how to ride the waves rather than get hit by them constantly. And I
agreed.
Really kind of took that to heart. And I was like, you know what? It really is true. If you can just ride them, either dive under them, go over, but allow them to happen, you can do a lot of things. And to your point earlier, when you said, sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. If you're dealing with trauma, if you're dealing with mental health issues or something like that, it will almost invariably get worse first, right? Because of the fact that a lot of times we layer excuses and bravado and machismo and all these other things on top of all the issues before we actually engage them. And so in order to engage them, you have to dig through all of that, which is going to bring you down so that you can rebuild.
That's okay.
Them
no big deal.
That's okay. Exactly.
No big deal. You're not the first person to experience it.
100%.
We all have, and we're all come out the other end to be able to talk about it. So it's not a big deal.
And that is 100% true. Now, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the show, but I'm going to hit it off right as we finish off. There is right now a desire for me to shave my beard. Now, I've had this beard since I got out of the military, so it's been over 10 years now. And so I'm raising money. So if you want to donate, hit the link in our Instagram bio. I'll put the link in the show notes here, as well as I'll be doing it every day. If you want to donate money, it's going to Warrior Adventure Canada, which gets vets out in the wild and reconnecting with themselves, reconnecting with each other, and reconnecting with nature. Awesome program. I've been on it. It was a fantastic trip. Recommend it for everybody. So if you want me to shave this beard, which I'm going to do live on the 30th of June. You can donate to that, and you can see me with a clean baby face for the first time in 12 years, 13 years, something like that. So that's going to happen. But other than that, as we learn how to communicate with each other as men, allows us to build upon our community, which allows us to grow as a society. And if you want to do that with us every day, you can here on The Collective. We'll see you all tomorrow. Chimo.
Chimo.